here we go.
Hey, what is up? So for this video, I want to talk about the finale of Season 6 of Better Call Saul entitled Saul Gone. But anyway, getting right into the climax of this episode, we see following Gene Takovic getting arrested in the dumpster that when he's faced with the charges that he is accused of by the feds.
Federal conspiracy to manufacture and distribute a controlled substance.
On this scale, life sentence, stat max.
Money laundering.
8 counts, 20 years each, 160 years, stat max. We'll argue for consecutive sentencing.
Accessory after the fact to multiple murders.
Including 2 decorated federal officers, 15 years each. By our count, that's life plus...
190.
Life plus 190 years.
He, in very Saul Goodman-esque fashion, manages to paint himself as a victim of Walter White's drug empire and totally spin a logical version of the truth to benefit himself.
2 years ago, a man came into my office. He said his name was Mayhew. He wanted one of my clients to lie under oath. He offered me money. I declined. Any lawyer would.
By stating he did all of his actions while a member of Walter White's drug empire because he was forced to do so in fear of reprisals by Walter White.
That night, as I was leaving my office, I was attacked. 2 men threw a sack over my head, they hogtied me, and they drove me out into the desert. And when they pulled the hood off, I was kneeling in front of an open grave with a gun pointed at my head. That was my introduction to Walter White.
As well as his meth cook partner, Jesse Pinkman.
So yeah, when it all blew up, I ran, but not from the police, from them. Walter White might be dead, but Jesse Pinkman and the others, they're still out there, somewhere. Mrs. Schrader, you are looking at a man who has lost everything. My profession, my family, my freedom. I have nobody. I have nothing.
But of course, following this unbelievable twist that I did not see coming, we then see Saul Goodman appear to have a complete about-face change of heart, following him learning about these grand revelations of the actions of his former wife, Kim Wexler, when he proceeds to attempt to lessen his plea deal to even less than the 7-year plea deal that he is being offered.
Results in an anticipated advisory sentencing guidelines range of 85 to 90 months imprisonment, in addition to any supervised release, fine, and restitution the court may impose.
7.5 years.
Let's get this thing signed and get the hell out of here.
By stating that he also has information surrounding the death of Howard Hamlin.
Concerns a prominent Albuquerque attorney who disappeared, believed to have killed himself.
Howard Hamlin?
You're talking about Howard Hamlin. That's your sweetener.
Of course, this is then dismissed by the feds because they state to Saul, unbeknownst to him at the time, that his former wife, Kim Wexler, had already confessed their entire involvement in respect to what really happened with Howard Hamlin.
He's trying to sell us the Hamlin thing.
He thought he really had something.
Sounds like you and your ex aren't talking on a regular basis.
Kim Wexler walked into the Albuquerque DA's office last month. She spilled her guts about Howard Hamlin. On the record.
Now, of course, at the time, while we did not know what Saul Goodman was thinking here in this scene, we then see Saul in the final scene during his plea deal court hearing that he completely goes against the parameters of his plea deal and changes his tune unequivocally and states that he was not a victim of Walter White's empire and was actually a willing participant.
I wasn't there when the meth was cooked. I wasn't there when it was sold. I didn't witness any of the murders, but I damn well knew it was happening. I was more than a willing participant. I was indispensable. I kept Walter White out of jail. I laundered his money, I lied for him, I conspired with him, and I made millions. If he hadn't walked into my office that day, Walter White would have been dead or behind bars within a month.
And thus is the backstory behind why Saul ended up being sentenced to 86 years in prison, effectively a life sentence, due to the fact that federal prison mandates that you serve at least 85% of your term before you're eligible for parole, meaning that Saul Goodman will be well over 100 before this is even possible, thus for all intents and purposes having it so he will absolutely die in prison.
You had him down to 7 years.
Yeah, I did.
86 years.
86 years. But with good behavior, who knows?
The question is, of course, after all of this, why did Saul Goodman have a change of heart and do what he did? And while initially, to me, after watching this episode, it really did, to me, sound like he did this to save Kim, if we go back and read an interview with Peter Gould surrounding Saul Goodman's actions here in this scene, this actually appeared to not be the case. Because based on Peter Gould's response here when asking, did Jimmy do what he did to save Kim, Peter Gould gives an unequivocal no here and states that he's not doing what he's doing to save Kim, but rather to come clean, just like Kim did.
As soon as we land, I want you to tell the other side that I've got more to trade. Okay, I just remembered something that'll make their toes curl.
Okay, anything that makes their toes curl is bound to jam Kim up, if it involves her.
Oh, it involves her.
And own up for all the terrible things that they did.
Oh, I lied to the government about Kim Wexler. I fed him a load of BS about her involvement in Howard Hamlin's murder. I just wanted her to come here today. I wanted her to hear this. What happened to Howard Hamlin? It was... I can't even...
And so it really appears that following Saul being absolutely taken aback by Kim confessing, this truly made him as well feel the need to confess all of his legal sins and bear moral responsibility for everything that he did over the course of Breaking Bad. And Better Call Saul.
Not okay. Not for her. Her problem is not the DA.
What then?
Well, apparently, Kim took her sworn and notarized statement and hand-delivered it to Hamlin's widow.
No.
Yes. She opened herself up to a civil suit. The widow can take her for everything she has and everything she's gonna have in perpetuity.
So is she suing?
All I can tell you for sure is that Mrs. Hamlin's out lawyer shopping as we speak.
Where he even says as much that Kim Wexler had the right frame of mind to truly try to atone for everything she did by living her life as she did in Florida. But of course, Saul stating he did not do the same and effectively doubled down on this criminal persona that he pursued following the death of Howard Hamlin over the course of the plot of Breaking Bad.
Kim had the guts to start over. She left town. But I'm the one who ran away.
And so, yeah, it was very intentional here, clearly, by the creators to then juxtapose the flashback scene of Jimmy McGill and Charles McGill, which took place in the timeline of Better Call Saul prior to the events of Uno, where, based on the dialogue, we can see that this is likely the very first time that Jimmy ever was helping Chuck following his self-diagnosis of hypersensitivity to electromagnetism. And again, while there's no right answer in any of this in respect to the logic behind the characters and what these characters deserve, it is kind of interesting where, in the end, Jimmy atones for what he did and all the terrible things he did to Chuck.
And my brother Chuck, he was an incredible lawyer. He's the most brilliant guy I ever met, but he was limited. I tried. I could have tried harder. I got his malpractice insurance canceled. I took away the one thing he lived for, the law. After that, he killed himself.
where it really appears that Saul felt the need to atone for everything he did, including taking away Charles McGill's reason for being, when effectively his maneuvering in season 3 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Expenses to get his malpractice insurance revoked was effectively a linear trajectory, which led to Charles McGill no longer being able to practice the law, and thus made it as though Jimmy took responsibility for the fact that he took his own life after this. And so, with all of that being said, it appears that, again, and this is only my interpretation of all of this, that Saul was done hiding and truly wanted to own up to everything that he did, and no longer even assume this persona of Saul Goodman, but truly live as Jimmy McGill in federal maximum security prison for the rest of his life.
Mr. Goodman, sit down and stay seated.
The name's McGill. I'm James McGill.
And again, like I said, while there's so much nuance to this final scene, and there's really so many different angles and interpretations to all of this, because we don't know exactly what was going on in the characters' heads, despite the creator and writer of this episode, Peter Gould, stating to us his intentions for Saul's actions here in this scene. It's just very interesting to me that Saul basically owns up to the fact that he should bear more responsibility for his actions and all of the people he hurts, and truly deserves to be in prison for the rest of his life. Alright, that is all I really got for you guys on this one. Like I said, even a full day following watching this final episode, my opinions and my interpretations of all the scenes are continuing to morph almost on an hourly basis in respect to how I feel about the actions of the characters in this final episode. Definitely curious to know what everyone else thinks surrounding this final episode, and how the creators decided to paint the character Saul Goodman when all was said and done, in respect to his actions here at the end of this episode, as well as his relationship with Kim, who Peter Gould outright stated in this interview he was not trying to save, and in his interpretation, Kim saved herself and Jimmy did not save her. Again, a lot of food for thought here. I could ruminate on this for years seemingly and still not have a definitive opinion on all the final scenes that were displayed to us over the course of this series. But irrespective of that, I really enjoyed discussing this series on this channel, and I really appreciate everyone for watching all of these videos. And as always, my name is Anton Jackson. Thank you again so much for watching this video.